I call Ian McKelvey.
I feel sorry for those blokes getting out of bed on the wrong side every morning, year after year after year. Anyway, Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to speak briefly on the bill that was the Electronic Monitoring of Offenders legislation bill, which is now three different bills. And Mr Speaker, I suppose if you're a minimalist, we've got rid of one piece of legislation and we've tacked some amendments onto three others, which from this perspective is a pretty good thing. The bill will make a couple of key differences to what goes on in New Zealand, and much has been talked about already in this respect, but it will give offenders being monitored a much better chance of successfully reintegrating into society. Because if they are, I guess, let out to the community and they are in some way or other monitored and I guess they know that they're controlled or that people understand where they're at, I think we'll be much better off and they will be better off, and I think we'll give them a better chance as they go through that process of I guess, not re-offending and reintegrating into society and into the workforce. It also makes a contribution to public safety by putting a boundary on the offenders that they will respect, by at times protecting victims, at other times by restricting movement. So there's a lot of options this bill gives corrections and gives the courts in the manner in which they implement it. So, Mr Speaker, it is a positive bill. It's a small piece of legislation, but like many other bits of legislation the government has put in place around law and order in the last 7 or so years, or 8 years, it will make a difference. And the two differences I've just spoken about are two of those. This bill at the moment, there's about 4,000 people on electronic monitoring around New Zealand. It costs about $3,500 per person, so in that respect the last speaker was right. It saves us about 90-odd thousand if you don't lock them up. From my perspective, Speaker, I think that's a very positive thing for New Zealand. It's very positive for our communities, and as I said earlier, it does help us integrate or reintegrate those prisoners in a much better and more stable manner. Mr Speaker, the other thing I just wanted to talk briefly about was, and this has been raised by a couple of the speakers, was the concerns around the technology and the advances in technology that we're seeing, not only in law and order, of course, but right across our community, are immense. And so inevitably, as we introduce technology and use different forms of technology for monitoring or for whatever else we might use it for, there are always going to be challenges around that. And the Select Committee did have an opportunity to go and visit the company that manages this technology for corrections. And I guess I think like any other technology that's being introduced into a system, there will always be some challenges around it. But we were quite impressed with the way it worked. We got to understand how it operated, what that technology enables corrections to do. And I think, to get back to the point that the two Labor speakers made, I think our major objective, and in fact the Green speaker made the same point, our major objective is to get these people who are being electronically monitored back into the workforce, back into our community, and allow them to reintegrate into our community without re-offending. So, Mr Speaker, with those few words, I commend this bill to the House.